intro work again.
Hello and welcome to the Weekly Wednesday Warrior, sponsored by Top Card and Comics here in Port City, New York. I'm Skylar Hathaway. I'm Chris Bonner.
Welcome to the Weekly Wednesday Warrior, sponsored by Power Card Games and Comics in bright and sunny Port Ewan, New York. My name is Skylar Hathaway.
I'm Chris Potter.
Welcome to the show. What do we got today, Chris Potter?
Today on the show we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange #1, World's Finest #13, DCeased #7 of 8, and Nightwing 102.
So we have one Marvel book and 3 DC books.
Yeah.
This is like an ongoing theme here, huh?
Yeah.
What was it like? I think we did an episode where it was like Moon Knight, and then either 2 or 3 DC books right after that.
And it's another Jen McKay book.
And it's
not just like another Marvel book.
Which is the real reason we're checking this out, too, right? The other thing to mention in regards to Marvel books is we haven't had a Daredevil book on the show once so far, right? Or we had one.
We had one, yeah.
Doesn't it feel like it's been a while since Daredevil's come around?
It does. Yeah.
I want that book to come on. That'll definitely make it on the show once it comes back around.
Yeah.
But for now, we've got Doctor Strange. You got a summary in your head you can do for it?
Sure.
It's pretty simple, right?
Yeah. Doctor Strange is back. So
he was dead.
Is back. Yeah.
He was
dead.
Recently He's not like
dead.
Back from vacation or anything. He's been revived. Mm-hmm. We don't know how.
I think neither of us read the last Doctor Strange run thoroughly. We do know how. I promise you.
Well, I mean, if you
they don't go out of their way.
If you pick up this #1, you're gonna have no idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
This as a #1 is not the greatest. It doesn't explain as much as it should for being a #1 and jumping on point.
Yeah.
I think it is a good introductory Doctor Strange story because it's really just Doctor Strange is back.
Yeah.
He's a consulting magician / doctor. Yeah. And he's seeing his clients more or less, which is other superheroes.
Yeah.
He checks in with Spider-Man. Spider-Man lost his soul in like this like New York game. You know how they do those
a 3-card Monty game with a demon. Very Spider-Man. Very Peter Parker. Was written really well.
Yeah. So just stuff like that. He checks in with Daredevil. He sees Luke Cage.
More accurately, these people are knocking on his door for help now that they know that he's back.
Mm-hmm. And he's not just doing it at the Sanctum. He's doing like home visits. Mm-hmm. They're making like not quite jokes, but they're kind of referencing like how doctors did it during COVID and how like there's these different like online consultants and stuff. So we can see Doctor Strange using like a crystal ball to communicate with Daredevil and stuff. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. But
Daredevil is exercising a demon.
Yes.
And he needs Doctor Strange's help. And Doctor Strange makes a line about he's not really into like Catholicism.
Yeah.
There's only so much help he can provide here.
And the other notable thing about this issue, before we get into what I think is the meat of this issue, about 12 pages in, is that Doctor Strange is now is now married to, as well as working with the Sorceress Supreme of the Dark World, Clea. They've had an on-again, off-again relationship over the course of this history.
She's got a fancy title like Lord of the Dark World or something like that. Big fancy. The past 10 issues or 12 issues of Strange was about Clea and establishing her character within the Doctor Strange mythos, I'd say. And now she's huge importance. Yeah.
She's hanging around, helping him do his stuff. I believe Clea is the one to exorcise the demon for Daredevil, right?
Yeah, that's right. And she is definitely the supporting character.
Yes. But the real bulk of this issue is there's a problem in the purple dimension with this demon, Agamemnon.
Which they don't really explain what the purple dimension is either.
No. They just kind of accept that you know more about Doctor Strange than you really do.
A lot.
Yeah. They just keep dropping things. Spells, they don't explain what they do. They just drop names. It's a little annoying, but like I think like the narrative itself is very easy to follow, so I wasn't too lost.
Yeah, I'd say.
But he goes to this dimension with Agamemnon. He's been enslaving people from another magic dimension. Maybe it was Earth? I don't remember. But he's enslaving these people.
Aliens. They were alien refugees that were on Earth.
Right. And so Doctor Strange goes to the purple dimension to free them. Agamemnon and him like have a sort of back and forth Doctor Strange with the support of Clea, who's another Sorcerer Supreme. Agamemnon is the Sorcerer Supreme of his dimension. Since there's two of them, he backs off. He's like, I don't really want to deal with both of you right now. So whatever, a bunch of meaningless aliens, you can have them. And then
he kills one of them.
Yes.
To show strength in his own dimension.
And then
pisses off both Clea and Stephen Strange, who manages to calm Clea down.
Yeah, because Clea is going for blood after she sees this, and Doctor Strange is like, I serve an oath to help people, so let's figure this out before you fight him at all. He'll pay in time. Let's get these people out of here.
Yeah.
And then the issue ends with Agamemnon is killed by someone off panel. We don't know who it is.
Well, the issue doesn't end. The
story ends,
and they're going the DC route. Probably, I'm not surprised about this at all. I'm sure both DC and Marvel are paying very close attention to what's succeeding in comics on each other's end, because they're giving us another background short story in the back of this. This is a $5 book, so you have to assume that this is probably going to continue going forward. There are two stories here. The first story is Doctor Strange story. Did you read the second story?
I did-ish. Like, I read it, it was okay enough, but I wasn't paying that much attention.
So the second story, I'll summarize real quick.
Sure.
Wong and another person I forget the name of, but also some magic user in the MCU, in the Marvel universe, is on a SHIELD-sanctioned magic team that has been disbanded to some extent.
Yeah.
They're on a mission to go and take down a dude named Dr. Z, which I know is a Johnny Quest villain, so I don't know where they're pulling that from. But this Dr. Z guy looks like some dude out of like a literal cartoon. Like he's got really obnoxious glasses, frizzy, crazy Robotnik hair, and he's got like this this blimp, but it's made out of what looks to be like a cyberpunk type design and stuff. The artist on this backup story is actually really good. Andy McDonald, Ian Herring. And it's still written by Jed McKay, which is something that I'm going to address in another book later. So it's good. They take down Mr. Z, but then they also get Dr. Z, to join up with Wong and this other girl. And it's real quick. They're just trying to establish what the Marvel magic team is right now, what it looks like, who they are, what the reasons for doing the things they do are, and the fact that they're no longer connected to S.H.I.E.L.D. They're doing their own thing, their own way. And so they get Mr. Z on the team and the story ends.
And they sort of reestablish that Agamemnon is dead and this team, Wand, also knows about it.
Yeah, they find out at the
Presumably they're the ones who's going to tell Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm saying that is I don't know this is going to continue. I know a lot of Marvel #1s have done this, where they have a backup just...
Sure.
Because they always make these #1s a little bit more expensive.
$5 anyway.
Yeah.
Not always, but
so they,
Doctor Strange.
They throw in a little one shot. I think this was just to get our characters in place, but we'll see with coming issues.
Yeah, it's possible. I like that there was a bunch of team up stuff as soon as this thing started, because one of the ways that I've been introduced to Doctor Strange over time is through team ups, almost exclusively through team ups. I haven't read a lot of Doctor Strange books, and the Doctor Strange books I have read were more or less team-up books. Yeah. He's a very supportive character, almost constantly. He's one of those characters they use in the Hulk all the time. Him and Hulk have a great relationship that established in Marvel continuity. Yeah. So it's great when a writer knows that. He's like, all right, we do a few team-up things real quick. And they brought on Spider-Man, which Jed McKay wrote really well. I can't state that enough. He was only in the issue for maybe 2 pages or something. But there's some, it's hilarious, the jokes that he's like he lost his soul to this demon, and then like Doctor Strange is like, how did that even happen? And Spider-Man's like, I don't really want to talk about it, that kind of stuff. He threatens. Go ahead.
I really like that he opens with, he's like, a lot of people don't like me recently. Something going on in the main Spider-Man book, and Doctor Strange's like, I've been dead. It's fine.
Yeah. I don't think either of us know why either, because neither of us are reading the Spider-Man books.
No.
Other than he's been like being mean to Ben Reilly again.
Yeah. What
a jerk. Leave Ben Reilly alone. In addition to that, he does visit Doom. Yeah. Is one of the things he makes sure to do in this issue. He literally threatens Dr. Doom. There's a hard pill for me to swallow, because I mean, he might be a more competent Sorcerer Supreme, but Dr. Doom is a more competent person.
Sure.
I'd say that Doctor Strange is weaker and has more weaknesses than Dr. Doom. You want to go threaten Dr. Doom. I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't come back around later in the series.
Oh, for sure. And also, one thing that I have a little bit more background for than you do is they have a relationship established throughout Hickman's Avengers run, which is very similar to this. They're sort of antagonistic towards each other. Yeah. So there's been like some.
Oh yeah. And then Doctor Doom becomes his advisor in Secret Wars.
Yeah. Doctor Doom. No. Oh yes. Doctor Strange is Doom's advisor.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. They have like so similar.
They do. What'd you think about the art, Chris?
So I know this guy from Spider-Man Spider Shadow.
Pascal Ferry.
Yeah, Pascal Ferry. And I always think I like it. It has like a flair of the past. I don't love his color sometimes. His skin leans really blue a lot. I think it looks really unnatural and weird. It's his colorist that he works with a lot.
And it's Matt Hollingsworth, which I didn't like it, straight up. Didn't like it.
Okay.
I got nothing to compliment on it at all. I thought that this issue almost fell flat because of it.
Yeah, that's one thing I would, I really like that.
Hold up our covers, which we're going to do, right? Here's the Alex Ross cover, which
really going for it.
I'm probably going to pull up, so I don't even know why I'm showing you guys. This Alex Ross cover is gorgeous. Here's Martin Coccolo, which I don't know his work at all. Looks really good.
Killing it, yeah.
You open this book up, and it's crazy different. Yeah. Sometimes you'll get an artist on a cover that's like similar to the interior artist, but a little bit more flamboyant or better at poses or layouts or something. This dude's drops the ball so hard, I feel, and I kind of feel bad for him but he might have been a better pick for a book that is not Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Peter Parker seems like a fine character. In fact, that was probably my favorite part of being drawn was the Peter Parker scenes and stuff. But anytime like Doctor Strange is pulling shit from another universe and Clea's using a crazy spell, it falls flat immediately. It reminded me of Phil Noto's stuff. I think that's what you meant maybe a little bit by it feels like it's kind of homaging comics of the past.
Yeah.
Phil Noto is one of those guys that he uses paints and like really thick lines and stuff, but in such a weird way that it almost looks like old-timey comics a little bit.
Right.
And I could see that going on here. And I thought that this guy's line work was way better in Spider Shadow. I thought it was way more appropriate in Spider Shadow. Right. It's a little chaotic, which is I think maybe why they threw him on this Doctor Strange book. But it's chaotic in it lacks form.
Yeah.
Not in like the Joker book where like it's got form but it's all over the place.
Right.
This guy's form is really weak. His layouts are really weak. Like it kind of looks like he might have just splashed a couple things on a page and gone, all right, looks good enough. Let me keep going. Which is, that's a fine way to do comics sometimes, I suppose. But Doctor Strange #1.
Yeah, they really wanted to go swinging out the gate, and I don't think Pascal Ferry is doing.
Unfortunately, literally failed. So that really brought the book down. I have like 2 to 3 comments on the art in my notes, and next to nothing else. But that's also why I like the backup story a lot.
Right.
I thought the backup story had a better artist, better team overall. What'd you think? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just think his design work was better when he's doing magic stuff. He's having a lot more fun with it, being a lot more inventive too. Which is what you want to see in Doctor Strange with the backup artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the blip and everything.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, Andy McDonald and Ian Herring in the back of this book really did a great job. It's a shame that these weren't switched, because had these been switched, this #1 might have been the perfect #1.
Yeah,
I would have been totally cool with it. Instead, I have complaints about both stories. One wasn't long enough and didn't feel like it had enough going on in it, and then the other story, which had a lot going on and was long enough, didn't engage me because the art failed.
Right.
So that's a serious downside when it comes to comic books. You got any background on Ghost Dog?
Oh, Bats? A little bit.
I was going to say Bats, but I was afraid that you would get confused with the other 3 issues we're about to read.
Yeah, it's a Donny Cates character. He made it up starting with his run in Death of Doctor
It was
Strange.
Cates. I'm familiar to this character because of Cates.
Yeah, he writes him all the time.
I read what I'm going to call the Las Vegas story arc in Doctor Strange.
Oh, Damnation?
Yeah, well, that was its own event.
Okay.
There's also like 6 issues outside of there that Cates wrote in main Doctor Strange.
Alright.
Where it's more or less tie-ins to that story. Build up, tie-ins, and then lead after. Yeah. And I don't remember I don't remember him killing this dog in any of those issues.
I think Bats was always a ghost dog.
Okay.
I think that's his thing.
He just brings him in as Cates brought him in as a character more prevalently. Okay.
created him. We wanted to give Doctor Strange a dog.
That's one of the things I'm sure if you picked up this #1 and read it, you go, what?
Yeah.
There's just... And it's just in the background of the first couple pages, another couple pages, and then it talks.
Yeah.
On page 13. It talks. I'm going to pull that up over here just because we ain't filling up any other pages for this. The kind of, already me, I knew that this dog can talk. I knew it as a supporting character, but me trying to take myself out of that and read a new #1, I'm reading this going, this dog can talk? That's mad weird. It's a ghost dog. And it's Doctor Strange, right? So you gotta be okay with some of this stuff, which I am, and I kept on reading, but I don't see why Jed MacKay didn't just chop the dog or not let him talk, or something. Maybe expose the dog more later in issue 2 or something. There's plenty of space for supportive character for Clea. We didn't really need Bats to make that one-line joke with the people coming in or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining as much as I am confused at his role in this first issue. And probably everybody else is just as confused as I am if they are not a Doctor Strange person. They're picking this up the first time. Something about comics that I find really important is you have to make your first issues readable these days, extremely readable, because that's what's grabbing people anymore. People are really afraid of jumping in at random issues. They always want to pick up the #1. If the #1 doesn't not only sell that book, but it needs to sell the book, sell the character, sell the story, sell the product and the brand all at once. This has failed to do several of those things, which makes me really, really sad. Because this is Doctor Strange #1. This should have been one of the best titles on the wall. And it's the first book we're doing. Yeah. Which usually indicates that the books that are coming after this were better books than this book. I don't know that Chris agrees with me that this is the worst book that we've read this week. What do you think? Hard to say the word worse, because it was still a good book.
No, I really like this book.
It did make it on the show.
Yeah, I don't know, it depends on what week it comes back, but I'm going to keep reading this book. I don't know if it'll be on the show again, but I'm definitely going to keep reading it.
I'm going to keep my eye on it. If the second issue, which could bring this all back, if for some reason they drop Pascal Ferry and they pick up, I don't know.
Marco Cicetta.
Sure, yeah. It'll definitely be on here.
Yeah.
But, I mean, other than saying that, man, I ain't got nothing else to leave here.
Yeah, no, just on your previous note, it's hard. I like this book a whole lot. I think I do like it more than you do. I think it's just I don't mind Pascal Ferry as much as you do. Yeah. I found him a lot more offensive on that Spider Shadow book, actually, just because of how much I wanted to like that book and how much I didn't love his art. I think he actually was better on this book.
You were more prepared for this title than I forgot he even did that book. I was trying to figure out how he got this job.
Yeah, I don't know, and
it must have been like MacKay.
Well, yeah, I had to look it up because I saw a panel and it was that blue skin. Immediately, I was like, oh, this is from Spider Shadow, but I had to make sure real quick because I just remember that being one thing that I couldn't stand. Just that really. A really vibrant blues, but also really muddy too. On the same face.
Yeah, not properly.
I just wasn't
lazy
vibing
stuff.
with it. I liked this book a lot, though. I don't know that I would put it above any of those, though. So, yeah.
Moving right along to a title only barely better than the book we just read.
Okay.
In my opinion, This World's Finest. We both have the same cover.
Yeah.
A fine title. With a simple summary, yet again.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see if I can summarize this without butchering it all together. Stagg, Professor Doctor Simon Stagg is dead. Okay, if you don't know who Simon Stagg is, that's fine. This is 13 issues in, and they didn't really bother to explain a whole lot. So we're gonna keep on going, keep on trucking. What you do need to know about Simon Stagg, he looks evil. Dan Mora made sure to make this dude look real evil. Yeah. Thank you, Dan Mora, because without that, I'm not sure I'd even know what the hell was happening. Continuing, Simon Stagg has a bodyguard, far more important than Simon Stagg. This bodyguard used to be a Egyptian cave jumper.
Archaeologist?
Thank you, wow. It was a terrible description for a way better title. Anyway, it was some level of adventurer, archaeologist. Yeah. Stag at some point hated the guy because the guy was trying to date Stag's daughter. And so Stag traps him in a pyramid, more or less. And the pyramid has this radioactive alien jewel. And the radioactive alien jewel melts this dude.
Yeah.
And he's able to reform like Dr. Manhattan. And he turns into... Actually, I guess Dr. Manhattan would be more like Metamorpho. Metamorpho totally predated Dr. Manhattan. He turns into this metamorphized thing blob that escapes the Egyptian thing and goes immediately for Stag's daughter because that's the only ties that he has to real humans. And Stag's daughter, still loving this man, the archaeologist and adventurer he was, gives him the time of day and tries to help him reform himself, reconstitute himself as a human. This is geez, man, this is some real shoved into here kind of like, we need to quick explain who Metamorpho is, huh? Because, like, it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, this girl, yeah, a weird, like, blob thing came to her window. Oh, yonder, me, love, I need your help. I'm a blob man. And she was like, oh yes, by my dawn's break, come, I will put you back together. Like some literal Shakespearean BS.
Yeah.
Okay, alright. Let me swallow that pill real quick. So this lady helps Blob thing, becoming a human again, remembering who he was.
Yeah.
He becomes not only an archaeologist and adventurer, but he now becomes the superhero Metamorpho, which there's some great lettering for his introduction on page 10. You can pull up over here, compliments to Steve Wands and some cool lettering. Great pose too by Dan Mora.
Yeah.
So now we got Metamorpho. We have an explanation for Metamorpho. This took 5 pages out of our comic this week to explain who Metamorpho is, which if you're reading a World's Finest title, there's a darn good chance you already know who that character is. But if you don't, here's 5 pages on it. So continuing off of that, we have this Metamorpho guy, and he is the prime suspect in who has killed Simon Stagg.
Yeah.
Because there's no entrances, and Metamorpho can turn into any gas or whatever, and he has easy access to Simon Stagg.
Motive, for sure.
Motive, because the whole daughter thing, and Simon Stagg trapped him, but he still employed him as a bodyguard. It's a whole bunch of reasons and stuff. Okay. The other beat to be following in this issue is the beat that I like a whole lot more. Jimmy Olsen.
Yep.
At the beginning of the issue, we have this awesome splash page of the Bat Fam and the Super Fam, more or less. Pull that up because that's some really great figure work, some great Colors and Darkness by Tamara Bonvillain. Good gosh, man, Dan Mora, huh? All right. So they established this whole, all right, what just happened? How did we find out that Stagg died or whatever? And or like Jimmy helped them foil a plot in the last adventure that we were supposed to read between the lines here that happened. And they make a quick joke that, like, oh, how did Jimmy foil the plot? Well, Batman was there, and Batman says something along the lines of, like, I told them to take a picture. And so Jimmy took a picture, they figured out the villain wasn't who they said they are. Whatever. Continuing on, Jimmy is showing some importance here. Him and Clark are going to investigate for the planet the murder of Simon Stagg. They show up at the scene, and Superman sees Batman and Robin climbing in the window to already investigate. Superman, being a team player, doesn't want to be left out. We have no real other reason, I think, for his getting involved in. Obviously, Batman doesn't need Clark's help in a
no, but he's also investigating the same crime, so he's just coming along,
which he could do as Clark Kent.
Yeah,
and just like Jimmy Olsen.
He just doesn't want to be seen with Batman and Robin as Clark Kent.
Right, but he doesn't need to be seen with Batman and Robin at all.
Yeah.
So, Superman butts his butt in to Batman and Robin's detective situation as he leaves Jimmy Olsen to go and do literal detective work on Jimmy Olsen's own. So, I don't know where Clark Kent thought, I don't need to help Jimmy Olsen. I need to help Batman.
Yeah.
One's obviously a better detective than the other one. But okay, anyway, continue going on here. So we got them. They're looking over the scene, and they're trying to dictate what happened. And Robin's doing a bunch of really cool detective research, and Batman's being supportive, and Superman's being supportive as well. But also, Jimmy Olsen gets a whole splash page of him doing all this really important, like hard Lois Lane level detective work, asking suspects, questioning the right people, finding motives, doing the thing. This goes back and forth with the Metamorpho thing and through this whole issue, and we get to a point in the issue where they're trying to come up with a suspect that isn't just Metamorpho, because they don't want to just assume it's Metamorpho, because Metamorpho's the best of us. He's world's finest. Yeah. He's a hero, just like everybody else. Why else would we spend 5 pages on this dude, establishing him as a hero, unless he was indeed world's finest, you know? So Batman goes to confront Metamorpho. Metamorpho doesn't show any signs that he's necessarily done anything wrong. Metamorpho basically sounds exactly like Rex Mason usually does.
Yep.
And again, compliments to Mark Waid. I do have to say he is very good at writing characters. Rex Mason sounds like Rex Mason. Batman sounds like Batman. Robin sounds like... Everybody sounds like who they're supposed to sound like.
Yep.
Batman leaves him alone. Superman couldn't sense any, like, heartbeat things, but also Metamorpho's made out of goo stuff, so he doesn't have a heartbeat to sense anyway. But they're pretty... It seems like they're pretty content with knowing that it wasn't Rex Mason. Metamorpho. Yeah. So they go back, and I might be missing a portion of the summary here, but the last thing that I remember is Jimmy Olsen goes to Clark to tell Clark what he's found. And this is how the issue ends. It ends with Clark saying, it can't be him, in like classic 70s end comic Silver Age style. No, not him! And they reveal it's like on a newspaper, Perry White's already putting it into print.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne, suspect in Simon Stagg's murder. And I think where Jimmy actually sources his information from is apparently Bruce Wayne has beat Simon Stagg in a tennis game at some point. And then Simon Stagg then uses the rest of time, whenever involved with Bruce Wayne, to ruin Bruce Wayne, literally costing Bruce Wayne millions of dollars in the process and stuff. So Jimmy probably finds this information and uses it as motive. Pretty typical Mark Waid issue of World's Finest, huh?
Yeah.
Like, we got those 70s Silver Age themes. We've got even the characters. Even some of the, like, Batman has a joke in there. He tells Metamorpho not to call them bats. Yeah. And, like, I wouldn't say it's forced anymore, because I understand where Mark Waid is coming from and where he's taking the characters to and where he's coming from. Whereas when I started reading this, those lines did seem a little forced. But I gotta realize as a reader that Batman can be written differently depending upon what perspective you're using. And he's trying to use the perspective that Batman is less dark at the moment. He's got Dick Grayson running around. He hasn't lost a Robin yet. He's hanging out with Superman. They have a great relationship. Things are looking up and up. I wouldn't be surprised if Batman cracks a joke on occasion here and there, right? So there's some reason for that kind of stuff. Obviously, you could probably hear through my summary that I didn't enjoy this issue as much as I could have. And that's, again, because there's a lot of things that Mark Waid does with characters that I have no idea why. But overall, especially since Dan Mora is drawing this book and they brought Tamara Bonvillain back to do the colors, I'm a stoked and happy boy! Man. You got anything to add on this I probably left out there?
I don't think you really left anything out.
Good, I did a good job on the summary.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Nice.
One thing I will give the Metamorpho part that we talked about, I think establishing who Metamorpho is does a lot to make this book new reader friendly. I think this is one of those books I would give... I don't think you have to
5 pages
give it to someone.
Though. Could have did that in 2 pages, and you know.
I feel like I know more about Metamorpho than I did before. I don't think I knew, like,
that he was an archaeologist and stuff like that.
And I'm happier. I feel more connected to the character, having been explained what he is. I feel like 5 pages isn't a lot, especially with how the rest of the issue progresses. It's very brisk. It spends...
It's pretty quick.
Yeah, and it doesn't really waste a lot of other time. I can see 5 pages a lot for the rest of the book, but we move through the plot fairly quickly. We develop it a lot in one issue. Yeah. I feel like, because we learn about Simon Stagg's murder. This wasn't established before. We learn about Jimmy and Clark's, like, their previous adventure. We learn about, like, we thoroughly question Metamorpho, more or less remove him as a suspect. And then we establish a new suspect in Bruce Wayne. 1 issue, 22 pages. A lot happens. This could have been... I feel like a lot of other writers could have tried this out.
Yeah. Oh, especially Tom Taylor. This could have been a 3-issue story arc if Tom Taylor was writing it.
Maybe. I don't want to give Tom that sort of grief, because I do think that...
Oh, no, I know. I've read enough Tom Taylor stuff that I know this dude stretches it out as much as he can. And mostly because he wants to give the artist an opportunity to do everything.
To draw all the cool stuff, too.
Do almost everything.
Throw a bunch of fight scenes in there where you can. Yeah. And, again, the art was great. Yeah. I loved seeing Batgirl was in this book. One thing I do like is that...
one page, right?
Yeah,
but... page we pulled up.
One of the things Mark Waid is allowing Dan Mora to do, draw all these characters in this time period that Dan Mora doesn't get to draw in a lot, and I think suits his art style a lot. I think this
feels like
this gold, this Silver Age
70s
stuff,
type of stuff.
This like really bright, more idealistic version of these characters is perfect for Dan Mora.
Still relatively like 5-color Marvel style and stuff. Yeah, I can't compliment the art enough myself. I have half of my notes are on art over here. On page 14, there's an awesome Metamorpho. I'll pull that up for a second over here. The page right after that, there's an awesome Batman figure. On page 20, there's it's like a wrap-up Batman-Superman talk real quick. Yeah. And it's kind of dark. Pull that one up over here and stuff. It's 3 pages in a row. Whatever. We're doing what we can over here. There's no way Simon Sagg's dead, right?
I don't think
There's no way he's dead.
And, even if he is dead, we've talked about this a couple times, this book is questionable. The timeline of this book is questionable as to relating to anything else. Yeah. I think that's my only grief with this series as a whole. I've been reading, I read this issue, and there was a bunch of these 70s things, and then go back to last issue, and Robin's using a smartphone and an iPad and all this stuff. Yeah. Just that... It's not that big a deal, but those discrepancies do start to bother you as you read along.
I think Mark Waid's doing it on purpose now. Yeah. For 13 issues. I think he's trying to write 70s style into current continuity comics.
Right, and I would agree with that, and I don't think it works as well. I think this book works fine as just being a past book. Yeah. I don't know why he's trying to insert it into some sort of
probably wants
modernness.
Would you say that this book is more friendly to a younger audience?
Yes, and a new reader. Like, that's one thing I was saying before.
So he's probably trying to be a good writer, and he's probably trying to make the characters more relatable, and you can do that by modernizing them. That's it's a cheaty way, if anything, to making them more relatable.
Right, yeah.
It's just making them more modern. So I'm not opposed to it, and I see what he's doing, so I can't complain about that too much anymore, as much as I have in the last issue. But Mark Waid's doing some really interesting things with the title, and I think on some level I am enjoying them, even though they might make me want to talk about them more. So I'm going to explain this in a weird way. Sure. In wrestling, there are heels, there are baby faces, the good guys, the bad guys, right? If a heel is good at his job, you will hate him more, or that she or them or whatever it is they are. So I can hate a heel, really hate a heel, but I actually love that heel because that heel,
the babyface sing,
and not only that, but he's making the rest of us hate him so much more, right? Giving us more reason to be invested in what's going on. That's kind of what Mark Waid's doing here. He's maybe enraging me in the perfect ways that I have more to talk about the book because he's doing really different things from the rest of the stuff that I'm reading in current comics. Right. Most of my comics that I read, I wouldn't say they spend 5 pages on a character that I'd consider like D-list. You know? Yeah.
Would you have said with that Doctor Strange book, if there was a couple pages spent on bats, we wouldn't have had that complaint about him just being thrown in. It would have been forced.
I'd have been pissed. Right. Yeah. I'd have been more pissed that they bothered to spend time on this ghost dog. Okay. But they could have told me what the purple dimension is. They could have told me who Agamemnon is. I don't know who these characters are. I have nothing invested in these people. But in here, I am a little bit more invested in Metamorpho and Rex Mason. And fortunately for me, I've read a bunch of Batman and the Outsiders, being a big Batman fan. Yeah. I know who Rex Mason is. I know who Metamorpho is. I've read those books. I have that background. And again, Mark Waid being a fan of the 70s, wouldn't be surprised if that dude loved Batman and the Outsiders. Mm-hmm. So this dude is really paying homage to all the things he loves in comics. He's bringing it all back around, delivering it to an audience of modern day. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. Not only is he doing that, but he's got an artist that could do exactly the same thing. Dan Mora can draw
and elevate whatever script he gives him.
Almost anything. And I'm going to go back to the issue with the key. I want to bring up 2 points about that. that one like splash page that will stay in my mind forever, where the key is like melting in front of that character that we send back to his own universe. That is way past Dan Morrow's like wheelhouse of stuff that he's doing, because normally it's pretty Neil Adams-y looking stuff, but that looked like a Bill Sienkiewicz page. It was really impressive, and it showed you how like trippy the key is and how versatile that character can be, and how like powerful the dude really is.
Yeah.
Do you remember them spending 5 pages on who the key is?
No.
I remember them spending a few pages to show us, even a couple issues, to show us, oh, this guy has troubled us before.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what he's doing now. But they didn't, and he was in...
I think one thing he did better with the key is he used the plot to explain who the key was, instead of breaking away from the plot.
Right. So he might have used 5 pages, it just was over the course of a couple comics.
And also as the plot was developing, so we didn't take a break to establish who the key was.
The other thing, though, I'd say is the key is a significantly less known character than Metamorpho.
Yeah.
I think Metamorpho's had animated adaptions, maybe even a real-life adaptation I just haven't seen or something.
Yeah.
Key hasn't been in nothing.
Yeah.
And the Key was seriously put in the boots to Batman, Robin, and their new sidekick, and Superman. And all at once.
Also, Joker is there, who overshadows almost every villain he's around, so you really had to make the Key work. And to not just have it become a Joker story.
I remember the Key more than I remember Joker in that story. So, maybe Marquis nailing it, and I'm just not noticing it. Or maybe I'm finally noticing it here with issue 13. Either way, I'm out of complaints.
I will say, if I was dictating the order of this book, it would be higher up. I don't know where. I mean, I want to say that, but the next 2 books are really strong.
Yeah, no, it's earned its place on our episode here. My last note is that I'm under the impression that Stagg is framing Bruce Wayne for his murder because he lost to Bruce Wayne in tennis.
Yeah, that
if you think about 70s comics and reasons for villains to do things, that'd be right up that alley.
It would.
And Stagg, you're not too familiar with Stagg, right?
I'm more him than you because I'm a Young Justice fan, and he was a villain in that show.
I'm more than him. I've read a lot of Stagg as well.
Okay, gotcha. That's all I'm familiar with.
And he was in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, and he's been around. Simon Stagg's not a nobody. He just doesn't have much time in this comic, is all I was saying in the beginning of here.
And he spends the whole comic dead.
And you wouldn't know he was much of a villain outside of them mentioning that he's ruined millions of dollars for Bruce Wayne after a game of tennis, and the fact that Dan Mora draws him like a villain.
Yeah.
You got anything to leave off here, Chris?
No.
Moving right along to DCeased, War of the Undead Gods. We both have the same cover here. I don't want to pay $1 more for this. We were paying $1 more for this for a while, though, Chris.
Oh, yeah, because Dan Moore was doing like an X-Men tribute line of covers.
4 issues. And
I think it was 5, because the X-Men cover is like a gate of... No, it is 4.
I think it's 4.
Yeah.
And then they dropped that ball real quick and started doing homage covers to music albums.
Yeah.
Weird flex, but okay. So we got DCeased. DCeased had a pretty straightforward summary as well. I think all of these titles had a pretty straightforward. So World's Finest is probably the most complicated summary we've got here. You want to do the summary?
Sure. Alfred is the Spectre now. That's the #1 thing going into this book.
Yeah.
Robin is about to be... Or not Robin. Damian Wayne is Batman. There's a lot that's happened in the DCeased world. Characters or other characters. We're just gonna have to skip over a lot of that. Yeah. So Damian Wayne he's becoming a zombie again. Alfred is very mad. They're in this conflict with the undead new gods. They're kind of losing, but they're not like... They're holding their own, but they're not doing that well.
Yeah, and it's important that Damian is Batman, but not necessarily in this issue. It's more important that there's an Alfred and there is a Batman. And the Batman is losing, while Alfred has the ability to maybe prevent that from happening.
So Damian Wayne says something to Alfred along the lines of like, don't like fight these guys. Go try to save what you can. So he sends Alfred away to do something. We don't know yet.
It's vague. It's Alfred's choice.
Yeah, he gives
And he's also under the Spectre influence, so there's only so much control he actually has as like a being of natural cause.
Right. Lobo shows up to the
Page 1
battlefield. Yeah, I did skip over that.
And Alfred's narrating this whole thing, and Alfred says that oh man, it was so funny. Everything's on fire. The world's gone to the dumps, right? Everything is destroyed. The heroes are losing. There's no upside in sight other than Alfred becoming Spectre, which doesn't seem like it would turn the tide necessarily. And then Lobo shows up. He says, well, this looks like a fragging good time. As everything is on fire. And then Alfred says in the narration, he's like, Lobo showed up and it was ellipse gratuitous. So, like, Lobo apparently turns the tide so hard that Alfred Pennyworth thought that what he was doing was more than needed.
Yeah.
That's saying a lot, considering, like, I'd say literally almost every other page of this book and the books before it were turn up. Oh, flip the page, turn up. And I'm going to keep mentioning that as we go along. But yeah, Chris, so we got Lobo in the zone, we got Batman turning into a literal zombie because he got punched by the All-Father, Alfred leaving his son to go and do something we don't even know.
Yeah.
So the heroes have to hold their own now.
Yeah, that's basically what happens for the next couple pages. We get to see Oliver Queen is helping President Lois Lane or whatever. They're trying to get onto this light. Yep.
Cheesy jokes.
That's what Tom Taylor loves to write with Green Arrow for. He's his comedic relief most of the time.
Yeah, his quip in an arrow.
Yeah, quip. And yeah, they're all just trying to get onto this like life raft sort of situation to get off this planet because they consider this conflict kind of doomed at this point. And then Alfred shows up. He apparently went back to Earth 1, I think.
Oh, hold on. Before Alfred even shows up, the tide gets worse for us if we were on the side of the humans.
Yeah.
Darkseid shows up.
Oh, right.
With Supergirl and an army of Yellow Lanterns.
Yeah.
They start destroying things more, right? And Warworld is also with them. And then Warworld backs up into space and starts charging a Death Star level laser to just simply blow up the Earth.
Yeah.
Then Superboy goes and there's a couple hard pills to swallow through this series, but you got to put on your sci-fi hat on, you got to put your comic book hat on, you just got to read it. Superboy somehow, like Goku level, like Vegeta level, goes and stops an energy blast with his body and willpower. I can't make this stuff up because I honestly wouldn't write something that bad. But I can't make this stuff up. He does this. And then he, I think he just shoots through Warworld after that. No, he falls.
Yeah.
He falls back to Earth, and I think Superman shows up just in time to catch him or whatever.
He tells me he's proud of him or something.
Something
They have a cute little emotion.
Yeah, cute moment or something. So there's that, and the tide is going worse, and everything's going terrible, and Alfred's narrating the whole thing, and then Brainiac decides to assist because they're still fighting for a while through this issue. Superman, he saves his son, but then he goes right back to action, leaves his son with like Lois or something like that, and he goes to fight Darkseid because who else is going to fight Yellow Lantern Darkseid? Dead zombie Yellow Lantern Darkseid, and it's Superman, of course, but with the help of Brainiac.
Yeah.
There's a couple times in the series where I'm like, that hero or that villain made a bad decision.
Brainiac probably made it.
This would have been one of those moments where, like, okay, we have this 100-level intelligence or whatever he calls himself, and he's going to help Superman, which is a good idea, but the bad idea is if Brainiac gets infected, how fast can we then infect the rest of the universe, right? For all we know, Brainiac has an army of ships on a planet somewhere else, right? Which is totally feasible.
And we also established, therefore, after, he has all the bottle cities that he can immediately infect too. He can spread. Erebos is narrated, or he's not narrating, he's talking through someone, and he knows that Brainiac has all these cities, and he's just kind of like he's throwing his will like out. He feels his need to infect everything, so he feels that Brainiac has even like these tiny pockets of life, and he needs to get to these too.
Yes, and so he infects Brainiac
Yeah.
really quickly, like a panel after Brainiac starts fighting. And What's cool about this is, it was cool to see that. It's cool to see that the heroes might lose. It's cool to see these moments that you wouldn't see in normal comics. Yeah. So I really love these moments as much as they may be mistakes on the parts of the characters. Then Cyborg comes into the battle. Almost instantly, also like a panel later. And Cyborg, throughout the course of DCeased, has figured out how to cure this problem that's going on, which is weird because it's officially a god being and not a virus anymore.
Yeah.
But somehow it's still a virus. And so Cyborg is not only carrying the cure, but he has the cure, is the cure. And so he goes and this is weird. He basically merges with Brainiac, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how that works because Brainiac's got organic parts, to my knowledge. And I don't remember them developing that too much in this comic. Somehow I read right over that. Somehow I was like so immersed in the cool, bombastic nature of this turn up that I was like, this is cool, let's keep going. So Cyborg marries with Brainiac, has Brainiac powers, and has a great idea. And that is to unbottle the city of Kandor and make them all big and normal size again. So now there's an army of Supermen to literally fight it on our side. Will probably turn the tides. And almost at the same time, as Chris was saying, the Spectre, as Alfred Pennyworth, shows back up, carrying in tow billions and billions of cure bottles and viruses. We also don't know how he obtained. We also have no background on. Yeah. Because to my knowledge, the cure was coming from Earth. He leaves Earth to go and get this stuff.
I think he goes from Earth 2, the colony they established after they left Earth in DCeased, the second DCeased.
Okay.
So he's going from Earth 2 back to Earth 1. Which I don't think
remember
they mentioned.
Yeah, they don't.
You have to read between the lines as someone who has read DCeased before,
or just skip over this nonsense and keep going because they're going to keep turning up on every page. So you just focus on small things, you're going to get caught up in the nonsense. This book is not meant either. It's not meant for you to like stay on something like for too long. Mm-hmm. The book moves at such a fast pace, everything going crazy constantly.
Yeah.
That you're not supposed to sit there and think about these things so much. And in a way, how does a virus move? Fast pace, constantly moving,
quickly moving.
So the book is matching the pace of the theme that's happening within the book. I can always appreciate that. Yes, the book is viral too. It's like it. This book is only on its third installment because it's been so successful compared to like DC versus Vampires, or any of the other like horror titles they're doing. DCeased is probably the best DC horror title going right now. I would not call Tom Taylor a horror title writer at all.
There's not a lot of horror in this book.
It's mostly action-packed craziness, like constantly turning up multiversal nutty nonsense.
Yeah.
And I got nothing to complain about it in that regard. Want to finish up a little summary there?
Yeah, Alfred has the cure. He cures Damien, and then they start just using the cure on as many people as they can. And one of the people they use it on is Darkseid. Lobo is helping them out. He grabs the cure, shoves his fist in the Darkseid's mouth.
Pulling off a page.
Bites off his hand, but he gets the cure into him. Because they're like, where do we even stab Darkseid? His skin is made of rock, and his eyes are like these weird laser pools. He's like, I'm going to stab him in the mouth.
Lobo's like, I got this.
I thought for sure he was going to put it in his butt at first. I just felt like that would be a Lobo bit.
Turn up, right? Yeah. Turn up. How do we turn up? All right, flip.
But he puts it in the mouth. But Darkseid bites his mouth off. And then immediately Darkseid wakes up and is like, Superman tells him that you've been controlled, and he's furious.
Yeah.
He's like, who controls... nobody controls Darkseid.
Which, if I remember correctly, it was his fault that this thing was even out there.
Yeah.
Darkseid was like, I need to find the anti-living equation. And he did, and it was zombie, and he turned to zombie, and everybody else turned zombie.
So it controlled him instead of him controlling it, so he's furious.
Yeah.
He wanted to be the only, like... I believe what the anti-life equation is in, like, canon is it's like imposing your will over someone. It basically makes them brainless. So kind of zombies,
similar,
but, like, it's supposed to put Darkseid as the leader.
Yeah.
So he's mad that he wasn't.
Yeah.
So now he's going to help them fight Erebos or the rest of the zombies.
And that's what it ends on, is Darkseid being pissed off, and everybody else being cured again, and them finally having what seems to be the ability to win after 4 or 5 installments of DCeased. But who knows what Tom Taylor will do with the next issue. He could literally just do it all over again and make everything turn to crap. Yep. There's enough beats in this book all over the place where anybody could show up and cause a problem. And I think...
Yeah, where's Nick Spitlick?
somebody killed him? Superman? Superman drove through his... No, Spectre killed him. And then as Mxyzptlk was dying, he pulled out Jim Corrigan from the Spectre.
Oh, okay.
It was like, oh, you're going to take my heart? Well, I'll take your heart, too. It was really odd. It was in the last issue. So they've taken some people off the board, but Batlight hasn't showed up.
Yeah, Batman didn't show up.
There's all sorts of things.
Nightwing created another, or Tom Taylor created another imp in Nightwing. Nightbite could show up. That was his name, right?
That one doesn't seem very likely, though.
Nobody could do it.
There are so many we're gonna lose moments throughout the entirety of this series because of how often it seems like the heroes have such a disposition compared to the villains and stuff. And it makes the book more weighty in a way, because every time it seems like they're going to lose, they lose pretty hard for a while, and then they get one up on the villain. And then you're like, whoa, didn't see that coming. And it's kind of cool. Yeah. Sometimes it falls flat, but it's mostly kind of cool.
Did it feel too easy? Because that was the number one thing I came out of this issue for. We've been ramping up so much, and our biggest solution was Alfred went back home, grabbed the thing they always needed, and came back with it. I don't understand, because I feel like I remember there was some reason they couldn't go back to Earth, and that was the only reason there was still a conflict with the undead gods, was they couldn't get the cure. Or they couldn't cure it because it was Erebos. And that's actually what I'm pretty sure was happening. I don't know what changed in between this issue and the last that made this work. But again, like Skylar was saying, it's fun. So, and he's not really asking you to focus on that.
No.
So
I think that's there, but only a little bit. I think that their problem is they couldn't spread. Somebody in this book, I think, says, "Well, how do we cure?" It's Oliver Queen. Yeah. He says, "How do we? That seems easy. We can cure the whole galaxy, no problem."
Right.
Right. He makes that joke about how sarcastically it is a huge problem. We can't do that. But then Alfred shows
right, but the whole galaxy isn't the problem. It's like 5 new gods, or not 5, but like
that's not Oliver. That's not Oliver Queen's place to. Oliver Queen's just trying to say out there like we've got an impossible problem ahead of us. And then as that happens, like Oliver Queen turns around and is like, look, and Allfather comes and does a superhero landing on the plane. Yeah. So Oliver Queen has stressed that it's going to be difficult for them to cure everybody, but then they have the powers of the Spectre on their hands now, so that becomes a lot easier, a lot faster. Alternatively, if they had the Green Lantern Corps, they could send out all these Green Lanterns to various worlds and do the same thing, but that's also been a problem, right? Yeah. We sort of have the Green Lantern Corps. So I see where the problem is. I think where me and Chris are missing is, like, where is all this virus coming from? If it's coming from another Earth, who was on that Earth to make it? They left that planet, right? Yeah. Where is Alfred? I guess we have to chop this up to Spectre magic, huh?
Uh-huh.
Multiversal
or they had a stock. I read it as they just had a stockpile of it still, because why wouldn't you have a ton of it if this could ever even be a problem again?
They never put anybody making it out. Oh, hold on. I might be thinking about a different Batman book, but I feel like there might have been a scene where they trapped like a bad guy, like maybe the Riddler or Mr. Freeze, in a lab. And they were like, "You're going to help us make this stuff?" And he goes, "Why would I help you make this stuff?" And like they showed him like one zombie. And he was like, "Okay, I'll help you make this stuff." Okay. So I could be wrong. In our defense, this book has been going on for a while. Yeah. And since it's been turning...
there's like 2 years in between each installment.
And since it's been turning up almost constantly, it's hard to focus on what has come before it and stuff. All you really want to do is read this comic and go, "Wow, that was crazy. Can't wait for the next one." And it definitely does that. And there's probably some... I bet if me and Chris went and reread the entirety of this thing, we'd probably pick up on the beats that we're missing. Because I don't think either of us can say that this is a Tom Taylor thing where Tom Taylor leaves anything open ever. If he does leave things open, it's
because he's kicked off a book.
It's because of his own purpose. He's going to come back around and use it again. So if anything, he's just going to be closing up lines here. So some of this might be even closing up some lines that happened earlier in the book that me and Chris are just missing.
Yeah.
What else you got on this issue, Chris?
This artist Trevor Hearsay. We don't, I don't see this guy in a lot of books, but he's pretty strong.
Yeah,
I think he's fun, and he suits horror too because he has like this weird, sort of realistic, sort of shadowy style. It's
reminds me of the art on the Joker a little bit.
Yeah,
it's got that chaotic layout kind of thing going on,
and it's everyone's a little elongated, and I think that kind of adds to, like, this feeling of unease that you get in DCeased.
Sure, it would make it unrealistic a little bit to drive the fiction forward a bit. And I gotta hand some credit over to the colorist or the inker, Andy Lanning. I'm not sure who's doing what in this anymore, but the creative team is really good. They're doing a really good job. And what I thought was interesting about this particular issue is this is the first issue that ended on a high note in a while.
Yeah.
Every other issue has been ending on,
oh yeah,
crap just got worse. Crap just got worse. And this
one issue left. We have to end somehow, you know.
I don't know, because I mean, like even the installments end on a bad note.
Yeah.
So I don't think
I remember the first DCeased ending on a high note.
They
like,
leave
even though
Earth.
they lost.
They leave Earth.
They're very optimistic about it, though. I remember it being a happy ending.
I don't remember. I remember them. They lost Superman. They lost the Flash. Batman is dead. They leave Earth.
Yeah.
That sounds like a bad ending to me. Optimistic, maybe, that they had a chance, but it was still like. Now it's like not only do they have a chance, but they're gonna win, right? They have an entire yellow. They have the Cure. They have the Yellow Lanterns on their side. They have Darkseid on their side. They have maybe even Warworld on their side now. I think they have a better chance than they've ever had at this very moment. I mean, they've got a lot going on for them. And not only that, but it's really nice to see this thing going to some sort of conclusion in a nice way. They're going to wrap it up, probably. There's still that thing with all of the Kandorians are running around and are large size and have the potential to cause some problems, maybe.
Yeah.
Especially if Tom Taylor is ripping this from what I know is the last appearance of Kandor's turning to actual size. It's from the Master Race, the third installment of the Frank Miller Brian Azzarello book.
Yeah.
That caused a problem there. This could cause a problem going forward. It just wouldn't be that DCeased related. Or maybe Tom Taylor will bring it around and give us a reason to have a fourth installment of this book.
Right. I don't know that he's going to do that just because I feel like DCeased is a zombie book. I don't know if he would move into such a different direction, even if he wants to continue with that world. And I feel like for this final time, you know, we cured the virus, but viruses adapt and mutate in when we ended 2, there was this chance. But now with establishing Erebos and like there's a thing that you can kill to end this virus, I don't think the series is going to go on for much longer.
No, it'd be a lot nicer for Tom to write everybody a nice little ending, up to including the city of Kandor. You know, I'm sure that there are probably a couple empty planets of dead zombies that maybe Kandor can go and live on.
Yeah,
or something.
Or we have an army of super people to distribute this cure. That was something we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Who's even gonna disseminate all this?
They could fly through space and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that about wraps up the 7th issue of DCeased.
Yeah.
Moving on to Nightwing.
Nightwing 102.
Number 102. I'm going to do the summary here because it's relatively quick. We start out, we got the Grinning Man as Nightwing, and he's following Raven and some of the other Titans into Beast Boy's home.
Yeah.
And he's going to abduct this girl who is at Beast Boy's home. He tries his best to do so, the Grinning Man, in the beginning of this comic, but fails because Nightwing wakes back up from the last comic and intercepts the Grinning Man and lets the other Titans know that this is not Nightwing.
Yeah.
He has this part where he gets intercepted by Nightwing and he's just like, all right, well, I'm going to leave now. And he flies away with the little girl in tow. And there's this great line that he delivers because he gets stopped by Cyborg, Starfire, and Raven in the air. And the Grinning Man's like, oh yes, it's me, Nightwing, I fly now. Pretty humorous, obviously. They see straight through it. He throws the little girl, gets caught by Donna Troy. He tries to run away, and he gets stopped by the Flash, who says, you tried to run? You don't get to run, from the dude who exclusively runs.
Yeah.
They bring him into the Beast Boy's living room, I guess, for lack of a better term, dictations of where in the house they are. And they interrogate him, and they find out that Neron is the demon that is looking for the little girl's soul. There was a contract made with Desmond Blockbuster before he died, and now Nightwing wants to go and see this contract. Beast Boy makes a joke about going to hell and like going and finding it. Nightwing takes it seriously. All of the rest of the Titans are on board. Next issue, it's Hell Heist.
Yeah.
I think was the joke. Next issue is Hell Heist. they're going to heist a contract out of hell. Pretty simple summary, pretty fast-moving book. A lot of decent art. Travis Moore's doing a good job, just maybe not as good of a job as Bruno Redondo would be doing at the time.
Although, talking about Bruno Redondo and Travis Moore is picking up on some things Bruno Redondo has been doing throughout this book.
Yeah.
He has this with the Eskrima sticks Nightwing uses. He uses like this almost tutorial instruction book style where he unfurls them to show all the different forms that Nightwing
there's
do.
like little, they're like in the air fighting real quick, and Nightwing pops out a bunch of smoke bombs at him. Distracts him real quick.
So Travis Moore trying to continue the language Bruno Redondo has established with Nightwing in this book, and I really appreciate that. It shows some continuity even though we're breaking the usual team.
Yeah, so I can't complain about Travis Moore as much as I'm going to say that I'm going to miss Bruno Redondo. I don't know that Bruno Redondo gets work in comics outside of what Tom Taylor puts him on, so who knows where he'll show up next, if he'll show up again.
And I really like one thing that Travis Moore doesn't bring that Redondo does. He uses that Zipatone dot pattern, the screen tone, in his colors a lot. I think that's also a colorist thing, but I think it's something dictated in his actual pencil/inks because he's digital. And I really liked that language. It gave Nightwing this different look than a lot of the books on the shelf. It's a bummer it's gone with a different artist on the book.
Might even be, I might even say that Travis Moore draws darker.
Yes.
Because in the beginning of the comic, they were trying to avoid showing you that this wasn't Nightwing. Like, maybe if you hadn't read the new issue, you'd be under the impression, oh, this might be Nightwing abducting a girl. And you read through it, and you don't see Nightwing's face for a good 2 pages because it's not Nightwing. And if you were to look at his face, it'd be the grinning man who always has a smile on him, no matter who he's impersonating.
And the end once we actually see the grinning man painting Nightwing in shadow, kind of alludes to his actual design because he's like this shadowy, dark imp with a big grin.
Yeah.
And really, this new character that Tom Taylor has created, I believe, the way he's written it, seems like you get a different impression when someone's reintroducing a character than when someone's creating a character. It read like he was creating this character.
Yeah, neither me or Chris were familiar with this character prior to this either, and we know DC stuff pretty much. Yeah. So this is probably a new character, and if it isn't, it's been a character that hasn't been used in years or used well at all.
Yeah.
And then there was a backup story that nor me or Chris realized was being written by not Tom Taylor until this issue, mostly because it's a solid backup story. I might have complained about it a little bit in the last issue in regards to it was confusing because the newest issue of Nightwing at that time was like reestablishing the character and who he is and what he was doing going forward. Where you go into the backup story and you go into the backup story and it's in the past.
Yeah.
Whereas
it's picking up on a beat from the Nightwing annual that came out a couple of months ago.
Yeah, where they did a little like cute story between John Kent and Dick Grayson, where Dick Grayson is trying to help John Kent be a better superhero, be a better role in the role that he's got as Superman.
Right.
You want to summarize this one, Chris?
Sure. So Nightwing, they just got done. The circus exploded. Everyone's fine. You know, whatever they did. Superman got the bomb out of there, or they got all the people out of there. It wasn't that big a deal. So now they're back to investigating who cut this wire rope. It's a very procedural issue. Nightwing is sort of mentoring John Kent, so he's having John stick around. John has a background in some detective work. Both his parents are investigative journalists and reporters to some extent, so he kind of understands detective work, but Dick is just guiding him through it a little bit more. Dick is really leading the case.
For sure.
And he's trying to figure out, who cut this? Because there's not that many suspects, we find out.
No.
There's one person who checks it beforehand, but that's on camera.
Yeah.
Because, after the Grayson incident, or probably just because this is a more...
Circus. Just in a circus, you're going to want to put as many checks in as possible.
Checks and balances. But one person does check it after this safety person before the show that wouldn't be recorded, and that's the trapeze artists themselves. So Nightwing, he's like, who could have done it? The trapeze artist comes in, is like, thank you for saving me and my son. And Dick's like, yeah, I happy to help. Why'd you cut the rope? Yeah. And that's how the issue ends.
And the other thing too to note is that this is Dick Grayson's under the impression that this was put here to draw Dick Grayson's attention.
Right.
Here. We don't have that elaborated on too much in this issue, but that's where this is going. So, who knows who's behind this scheme and why they're trying to drag Dick Grayson into the mud of it. That it'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
What's cool is the art in the back is by Eduardo Pansica, and he's doing a great job. There's some really cool. I don't know that it looks very different from the story that comes before it.
Yeah, I got almost Eddie Barrows vibes from the art when I was looking at it.
Yeah, it's darker.
Yeah.
And it's a circus that they're at, and still they keep that pretty dark tone at like a circus setting, which is impressive. I don't really have a whole lot of notes for that story either. I think it was pretty solid.
Yeah.
Solid detective work in both the stories. The only real notes that I got left are in that story they do like a quick flashback because Dick Grayson's talking about being a detective. The flashback is to when Batman and Robin were doing detective work together. That's a really cool splash page. I might pull it up over here of Batman and Robin hanging out doing detective work. But outside of that, I got no complaints with the book. The last thing to mention is that Flash breaks down like why a demon would want a 9-year-old girl's soul so badly, and it's really that the demon Neron doesn't want to get. Well, I'll just quote Flash. Flash says, "Publicly losing to a 9-year-old girl means something with a lot of ambition and a lot of horns can overthrow it." Yeah. So if you lose to a 9-year-old, it might be a little easier for another lesser demon to come up and take your throne.
Well, it emboldens them, you know.
Yeah.
Right now, there's this air of fear that a demon has to establish as the ruler of any sort of dimension.
Oh, yeah.
To keep all these other demons in check because they're all full of ambition and malice.
Mm-hmm.
So he has to... showing weakness is a bad idea, more or less. That's just all Flash is saying.
Yeah. And so this backup story is not written by Tom Taylor. It's written by C.S. Pacat, who I don't know that well. I don't know that he's written anything else. But I'm impressed so far, considering I didn't notice it wasn't Tom Taylor.
Right. I think one thing that's really distracting from it's a different writer is that he's writing John Kent Superman. This specific and aged up John Kent Superman. I don't think a lot of writers have had a voice for him before Tom Taylor. Even before he picked up the Superman Son of John Kent book, I think he did a lot of work with that character in DCeased.
Yeah.
The first one and the second one to make him Superman.
Yeah.
I feel like just writing that character is it almost homages Tom Taylor in and of itself in his style of writing.
Yeah. He set that character up as Superman.
Yeah.
And he's done a good job in doing so. Do you know, the only thing I didn't pick up on in this issue is that I don't know why Beast Boy doesn't have one of his eyes.
Right.
And it's probably something that an editor's note could have solved real quick, but we haven't gotten because...
What do editors do at DC?
What are the editors doing at DC other than, like...
making sure Batman isn't killed.
I don't even know.
Arguably, Batman is sort of dead in the main book and doing other stuff in Detective.
Yeah. I can say that at least at DC, at least the Batman editors are talking to each other because everything in regards to Bruce Wayne and stuff is kept pretty consistent. Right. He is broken poor in the Nightwing book when he does show up. Mayor Nakano shows up in the Batman run as well as in the Detective run. There are a bunch of ties that are being tied together, but I don't know that the editors of the Batman books are talking to the editors of the Superman books, or are talking to the editors of the Flash, or any of the other books that are happening.
And for any of the Weekly Wednesday Warrior viewers who are interested, Beast Boy lost his eye in Dark Crisis. Slade attacked Titan's Tower, and that's one of the inciting incidents of the book. A bunch of the Titans got injured. No, I don't think anyone really died major, but Beast Boy did lose his eye.
I gotta look into that. Like, how does Beast Boy, of all things, lose an eye? Was he in the size of a shark? Did it get ripped out by an evil
I imagine
Aquaman?
he just got stabbed. Slade just got really pissed and stabbed him.
That sounds pretty reckless.
Probably.
You got anything to leave off on here, Chris?
No, this was a pretty good issue. One thing we talked about last week, do you feel that the book has picked up steam a little bit? Because I know you were a little bit, not down on it, but you weren't enjoying it as much as the 100. Do you feel like it's picked up back pace up again?
I'd say it's about at the same pace.
Okay.
And I know that, I want to say that pretty definitively because Tom Taylor likes to stretch things out.
Yeah.
So he's probably going to stretch out this Desmond kid storyline for 6 issues. We're going to be stuck with this kid and stuff.
And even if we don't, we're going to cut away from it, do a different story, and come back to a couple issues. That's something that he does a lot in Nightwing. Mm-hmm. Doing an issue, setting up something, and being like, we'll pick this up later. Yeah. I think that's one of my, I like that in the book, but it annoys me sometimes. Like, that 99 had that really strong story where Dick fights a bunch of... He fights someone. who comes to Bloodhaven. He goes to this vault thing, and he learns he has a vault for him in there.
Right.
There's a special vault in Bloodhaven that all these criminals use. There's
Right.
something for him in there.
Right.
We haven't picked up on that
We
yet.
don't know what that is. Yeah, I forgot all about that. Tom Taylor must do a good job at distracting the reader that day, so I haven't forgot all about it. But yeah, I'm excited to find out what that is too, now that you mention it.
Tom Taylor has long-term plans for this book. I feel like it's kind of funny in the same time that Nightwing has had one consistent writer telling a very consistent story. Batman has gone through 2 now. Yeah. We have Tinian and Zdarsky now. And even Williams. Oh my god, I forgot Williamson even wrote a run in between that. Yeah, Batman's gone through 3 writers, and at the same time Nightwing has gone through 1. And the whole time it's the same voice, same vision, same story, really compounding upon itself month after month after month. This is one of the most consistent and enjoyable DC books.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been a solid week overall, I'd say.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of complaints. No honorable mentions, though.
No.
All right, we're going to wrap this episode up. Stay tuned for our monthly 20th anniversary Shonen Jump coverage. Next episode we're doing is April 2003, which will happen next month. Got another weekly Wednesday Warrior coming up for you next week, every week. Thanks for watching.
Have a good one.
Take care.